welcome to our second episode in the Toekenz Podcast. We are so delighted to have with us today Neale Godfrey, who I'll let introduce herself in just a moment. I, of course, am Ichishita, the co-founder and CEO of Cryptos and Kitties, and I'm here with Jeff Allen. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, happy Friday.
So happy to have you as well. And Neale, delighted to see you in your amazing purple blazer, if you can call it that. I mean, I feel like I'm diminishing it by calling it a blazer because it's so amazing. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, Iris and Jeff, it is great to be here, and we get to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and that is educating our kids to be financially responsible and giving them real financial tools so that they get to use them, they get to learn, they get to earn, and that's what I'm all about. And I was lucky enough to be able to actually start the topic of teaching kids about money in the 1980s. When I went to look for books to teach my own kids about money, and there were none. So my 3-year-old daughter said, "Mommy, why don't you write the books?" So Mommy did. And I kicked off the topic in 1988 when I opened up the first children's bank, a real bank for kids at the toy store F.A.O. Schwarz in New York City, and an institute for youth entrepreneurship up in Harlem to bring our at-risk children into the economy. And I'm lucky enough to be able to morph into the new world of digital money. And Iris found me, and here I am.
I think I said something to the effect of, we're creating the definitive platform for kids and families, and you are the definitive voice in this industry. Let's do something together.
And it was an instantaneous situation, and I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have been able to kick off the topic and to be able to morph into gaming apps. And I'm working on my 29th book and financial literacy curricula that I kicked off in 1988. I serve millions of families and kids from the little ones all the way through adulthood. Because if we don't empower our next generation to take charge of their financial life, who is going to do it? And here we have the new world of digital money, and Iris is out there with a stake in the ground, making sure that our next gen, our little ones, grow up to be comfortable, to know how to earn, save, spend, and share. And NFTs and tokens are the future, which is now.
So I've got a question right off the bat. You seem so eager, right? Like with this whole new wave of digital money, as you talk about it, you seem like ready to embrace it right away. And I see around me, with my parent friends, like a lot of reluctance to dip their toe into that water. So what is it that makes you so confident and primed and eager to jump into that space without that reluctance at all?
Well, all currency is fiat, which means it's not the currency itself. It's just that a bunch of people got around and decided that it was worth something. And eons ago, we used things like pine cones and shells and other things where we in the tribes decided that this was currency, and it was fiat. It didn't have any intrinsic value. And then we morphed into using currency that was backed by gold and silver, and we stamped the value on that. Again, it was about fiat. A bunch of people got together and decided, hey, it's worth something. And now we use bills and coins, and a bunch of people got together and decide, hey, we're going to say that there's some worth behind it. So our life is now built on this. And of course, we have the digital world. So of course it makes sense that the new fiat currency is going to be digital. So it's just morphing into the next thing. It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that a bunch of people got together and decided, you know what? There is worth behind this. And why wouldn't we teach our kids, Jeff?
Great. So you're saying that this is all just natural evolution of currency in general.
Sure, because it's a way we communicate. And now we're communicating via digital world. And, later on, I think we're going to be doing brain to brain. And I think that we're not even going to have an intermediary. So then we have to decide what the new fiat currency is going to be when we do brain to brain. I hope I'm around to see it.
And I think this is intuitive to parents who have the fiat dollar bill physical analogy that we project value onto something. But for a kid who's entirely new to this space, how do we explain to them cryptocurrency?
Well, I think what we have to do is tell a story because kids like stories. And we have to start from the beginning that the way people got things thousands and thousands of years ago is they bartered. So, but I would have to figure out what you wanted. So I'd have to bring my chickens so that you could drag your fish and we could barter. But if you didn't want my chickens and I didn't want your fish, I had to schlep them back home. And that made it more difficult. So we decided to meet in the middle and form a market. And in the market, we still had a trade. And you know what? If I was really, really hungry and I was really thirsty and you had water, I would pay you a lot for that because the value would go up. But if I came and you had water and I was not thirsty, there was no value. And you know what? It got to be too hard, Iris. So somebody decided, I'm going to stamp that with a value. And now all of a sudden there was a value placed on it. And people decided, you know what? We don't have to take our stuff to barter. We can place a value and we can have something called currency. We can use that to buy this stuff. How cool is that? That's how the first markets were formed. Our kids will understand that story. It makes sense. They see it every day. We bring money. We say that money has a value and go find the price tag on that and they can see the price tag. So they get it. And then we invented coins and bills. And we can tell the stories as to how come there were coins and bills. And there were coins and bills because we fast forward the kids to Robin Hood's time. They all know Robin Hood. And he was able to steal from the rich to give it to the poor. How come? Because the rich couldn't lock their homes. They had to take their stuff with them. So they put their gold and silver in wagons. So Robin Hood and the guys hung out. And by the way, they looked great in tights, which is really important. And they were hanging out in the woods. And they could tell who the rich people were because they had wagons with all their stuff in it. So Robin Hood was able to steal. And the rich guys said, you know what? I don't want to be that conspicuous. I want to lock this stuff away. I can't lock it away in the home. But who had a safe? Only two places. King and queen. Don't want to keep it with them because they steal from people. But the goldsmith, the jeweler in town, had a safe. Aha! He was a townsman. I'll leave it with him and he'll give me a little receipt. And that little receipt said that Iris deposited so many pounds of gold and silver in the safe. And that little receipt became money. So I didn't have to go and take all my stuff. I could go to the next village, take that little receipt, and buy something with it. Then Jeff, if Iris bought something from Jeff, he could go back to the goldsmith and get his money out. So that became the first bank. Kids get it. So take the kids to a bank and explain it to them. That's all. They get it. It's a place to keep money safe so you don't have to take it all over the place. Okay, I get it. And then let mom and dad show the kids how they bank online, how they bank with their phone, how they can even deposit a check via their phone. Kids get it. Kids are way more digital than we are. And you know what? It is digital money for them. It is the world of that. Why wouldn't it make sense to them? But start at the beginning as to why we even have money. I don't want them to think that digital money is just a game. It's not. It's real. It does have value and it allows you to buy stuff. And that's what it is. And kids know what pictures are. They watch their favorite characters. They know who they love. Why wouldn't they want to own a digital picture of that character? It makes sense to them. They get it. That's all it is.
Totally intuitive for our digital native kids. And I remember from our first conversations how important it was to you that we be dealing with real world value, because that's how kids learn to engage with, who guessed, the real world.
I've been
Absolutely.
my oldest, my 8-year-old, loves to play video games on his iPad, and in some of these video game ecosystems, they have their own, native currencies like Robux. You've probably heard of in the Roblox
Sure.
platform, and I've been struggling to try to teach him like financial lessons while sitting next to him as he's playing a game, because he'll try to spend these Robux on things within the gaming system. Some things have more value than others, and I'm trying to help him to understand what is a productive thing to buy or a good use of your Robux versus like this skin that isn't going to help your gameplay at all, but you might look cool wearing it for a day or two until it goes out of style. And like I'm trying to insert myself into the conversation that way and relate it to something, but I'm not sure if it's working or not, and I'm not sure that that's the right approach or not. What do you think
Don't
about?
do that, Jeff. All right. You know, I'm very directive. Okay, don't do that. The thing about value is that he has to earn the money. Set up a chore system within the household, and he has to do chores to earn the money to buy what he wants. Don't go into the game and say, this is smart or this isn't smart. That's not the point. If it's worth it to you to earn the money to spend it to do that, go ahead. It's the same thing with the designer jeans. We used to have the fight with our kids about designer jeans. I don't care. If it's worth it to you to work 10 weeks to get the designer jeans, go ahead. If it's worth it to you to work 5 hours to get the extra money to go buy the Suns within the game, fine. But unless he earns it and he can identify with the amount of time it took to earn the money, there's no value. You've just given him money, and which also supports the entitlement program. And you can imagine how I feel about that. So that's all you have to do. Let him earn the money.
Great advice. Thank you.
I mean, I'm guessing that this extends into a gaming environment where you can, let's say, learn or engage with a brand that you love in a meaningful way. And if you amass enough value, whether it's points or maybe even NFTs, that there's still that lesson, this idea that I've earned this. There was an equivalent amount of effort put into earning this, and then I can choose to do with that as I will, whether it's to collect additional digital collectibles or to engage further in a game. It's about making sure that you connect the value and the effort into whatever it is it translates to once you've converted it into something ownable.
Absolutely. What I like to do is start with them, though, in real life, because not all chores are gaming within a gaming app, which is like fun stuff. So I start with the stuff that isn't that fun, because life is also not always that fun. So then they understand the value of their own work. And then they can go in and game and earn more and spend. I do separate the gaming world from the real world, because then I'd like to live in the gaming world. That's cool. I'd like to do that. I'd like figure out how not to do chores. So I want them to know the real world and how that works. I mean, my whole program is Welcome to Planet Earth. It's not all gaming. And that's cool. And gaming is awesome. And NFTs are awesome. But they also have to live on planet Earth.
But I find that that line is getting more and more blurred every day. And to do what you're saying is getting harder and harder to do. I find that what I'm encountering is that my kid's persona or avatar in that gaming environment is building so much equity in his mind that he's having a hard time distinguishing which is more valuable, the me here in the real world versus my avatar in that Roblox universe. So I really am struggling to like attack that issue.
Well, it's hard, and it's hard in the digital age. I mean, we don't want our kids walking around the world with their headsets on and never have to deal in the real world. I mean, and that's the whole world of digital connection. saying to people, I'm having a conversation, when you're actually texting to somebody and there is no personal interaction. No, you're actually not talking, but you are texting, and it's a means of communication, but it's not actually anything that needs EQ. It's not building those communication skills. So as parents, we have to mix the skills. They need to be digital savvy, absolutely, or they'll never be able to work in the real world in terms of the digital world. And it's moving and morphing so quickly. Anything you learn today will have nothing to do with anything they're going to learn in 2 or 3 years. But they also need interpersonal skills. We still are human beings. We want them to be able to talk to each other in real life and to pick up that sensitivity and to face read and to really understand that level of human consideration, communication, interaction. So we need to balance it. So that's why a lot of parents say, okay, get off, get off the phone. We're done. We're done for today. Now we're going to actually do something called talking. It's a concept.
It is, and it's such a hard balance to strike, right? We all want to be so sensitive to screen time and how much time kids are spending on their applications. And for me, that just means, okay, how do I make that screen time that they do get work for me or work for them, right? How do we make it valuable, productive, edifying, and
Yeah.
engaging?
It's always going to be a balancing act. And we've had it with every generation. I mean, think about when the telephone came in. And, because pre-telephone, people actually had interaction with each other and not that much. And they wrote letters to each other. And then, the phone came into being and people sat there on the phone. And as a teenager, my parents used to tease me that it was actually growing into my head and that I couldn't function. And we had phones with cords on them. Can you imagine? So, every generation faces that. And we just have to deal with it. And you can talk on the phone for a certain amount of time. It's the same thing with the screen. You can play, console games came in before we really had the digital games on the phone. So you can have so much console time and then you actually have to go outside and play. And playtime is not on your phone. You have to exercise, you have to move, you have to jump up and down. And that's just it. And we are always going to have that as parents.
It's a universal transgenerational balance that families are continuously trying to strike. And what's interesting is that, this is a truly intergenerational type of experience that we're trying to create, right? That we really see as being something that can involve, when you talk about your parents limiting your phone time, we're talking about, grandparents and parents and kids and, this really interesting intergenerational experience that's all kind of dealing with and grappling with the evolution in DeFi and Web3 together all at once, basically, at the advent or the early part of this industry.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that in because it's multi-generational, it's intergenerational. And what's really cool is that we, the older generations, can learn from the kids because they can actually do it faster. They actually have no fear. I'm always afraid that it's going to get dumped or I'm going to lose it or it's going to go away or something's going to happen. And it's so fun to see these kids navigate. And so I can learn from them. They can learn from me also. And one of the things is that so many parents have heard the words NFT and heard the words about tokens and heard the words about coin and don't know what it is. So they are going to learn along with their kids. And they need the words to be able to not only understand, but talk to their kids about it. And we're on the cusp of Web3. None of us really know what that is. We know that it's sort of the black hole that's going to happen. But if anyone sits there and says, oh, this is what it is, we don't know what it is, and it's going to keep morphing. It's going to happen in our lifetime, but we don't know. And again, in 50 years, when we look back on this, we're going to go, oh, remember the time that we were on a phone and we had to carry this thing around? Remember the days that we had something called a bank? Remember when it's going to all change. We just have to not be afraid of it, make it intergenerational, exactly what you're saying, Iris, and learn from each other and learn to embrace what's going to happen that's new.
How do you define or describe what an NFT is to people that may ask you?
Well, if it's an older generation, the way I describe it is everything is digital in today's world. Wouldn't it be cool to own a digital piece of art or video or something that was really special and that you would get to own it? Then the next question is, well, if it's digital, everyone owns it. Then I say, okie dokie. Have you ever been to the Louvre? You ever see the Mona Lisa? Guess what? It is reproduced more than probably anything known to mankind. There are posters, there are rings, there are t-shirts, there's all that stuff. But guess who owns the Mona Lisa? The Louvre. And you know what? You can reproduce it as much as you want, knock yourself out. But if you want to own it, there's only one place that does. You get to be the Louvre and own that digital picture. You can do anything you want with it. And everyone can see that you own it. How cool is that? And everyone can see what you paid for it, because I don't know what they paid for the Mona Lisa. I don't know, but I'd like to know. And if they sell it, I'd like to know what they sold it for. That would be cool. And I'd like to be able to track that. And that's what this world does. Does that make sense? Is that a decent explanation?
Totally. It's really easy to grasp. That I'm going to use it. I'm going to reuse that one.
Okay.
And I think it's important to identify the audience, right? You know how to speak to a generation that understands the Mona Lisa. And it's a different kind of explanation to a kid. Or maybe it's not even an explanation, apropos to the point earlier that these digital native kids immediately understand what it is to have a digital identity and how important these different digital assets are to not only expressing that identity, but to building out that identity's world.
Exactly. There's less of an explanation for a kid, because the kid may not necessarily care about the blockchain part of it, that there's a ledger and it's open. They're like, do I get to own this really cool picture or this really cool video clip? Yeah. And it's yours. And you can show people and it's cool. And you can print it out and put it on your wall. Doesn't matter. You still own it. But you get to sell it if you want. Okay, they get it. They don't have to know about blockchain. They don't have to know about transparency. They don't have to know about the ledger. They don't have to know about the wallets. They don't have to know that stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a lot of information for those who know just about, like, there are a lot of people who are entering into this space. They know enough just to get, themselves in trouble. And then you can go really, really deep into it. And here we're a tech podcast, I guess. We're a, DeFi, crypto, NFT podcast, but we're talking about the concepts from a perspective of those who are newly entering this space, right? We're not necessarily doing those deep technical dives. We're not breaking down the constituent parts of the blockchain, but we still need to understand these principles, at least on a basic level, to start dipping our toe into the space and experimenting in the space.
And you need to be able to explain it to people in a very simplistic way, because if they get it, then they go, oh, okay, I get it. I can't tell you how many friends I have who are investing in NFTs and have absolutely no idea what they're doing or how it works. And it's great. Everyone can get through the first sentence and then they're stuck. So the more people understand, it would be like asking somebody who didn't know what a bank was to walk in and deposit your money. Wait a minute. I'm going to give these guys my money? What are you, crazy? Why would I do that? Why would I? Well, wait a minute. They're going to use your money and they're going to make money on your money. What? They're using my money and they're making money on my money? And how do I know I'm going to get it back? I mean, think about it. It's just as crazy. Yeah. Well, that is ridiculous. Why would I do that?
Yeah, it does require a leap of faith. And it goes back to the whole financial literacy concept in the first place. Like I gather that you're in the school that it's never too early to start with financial literacy or to start learning about how value works and currency works and how it serves us in society. And I'm I'm wondering, like, do kids get enough of this in school itself, or is it really up to the parents to lead that charge and to ensure that their kid gets it? 'Cause I mean, I know that certainly at 8 years old, my kid hasn't gotten anything close to financial literate in school. I know it's not part of the curricula. So, what do you do? What do you tell parents?
Well, when I started the topic in the 80s, I went around and lobbied states begging.
Hmm.
It was ugly, but I was begging. And I was on presidential task force and governor task force and all this other stuff. And I'm like, stop studying it, just do it. Here's the problem. Our school system has not accepted financial literacy as part of core curricula. What does that mean? That means it doesn't have to be taught. There are only 17 states in the United States that mandate any teaching of financial literacy at all. And my state of New Jersey has decided, in all their wisdom, that the kids only have to take 2.5 hours of financial literacy, and it can be done second half of senior year. Now, think about second half of senior year. How engaged were you in your school? So, here's the deal. That's why I talk to parents, grandparents, I talk to teachers in school, I talk to them after school, and I engage everybody because you know what? And bring corporations in. We all have to raise financially responsible children. And by the way, it takes a village. So you need to do it at home, you need to do it at school, in your religious organization, businesses, whatever that is. Because if we don't, we know what happens. And one out of every 4 women in the United States of America will retire into poverty. 78% of the people in the United States have to borrow to cover a $400 emergency. How have we done in terms of that? So, full stop. I don't want to study it. We have to do it, but you have to give people real financial tools. And you have to put training wheels on those financial vehicles. And that's exactly what Iris is doing. Her financial vehicle has training wheels on it. And I start the kids when they're teeny, when they say, I want, I want. Now, we know that's actually 2 years old, but I give them a year off for good behavior. And I start at age 3. Why? Because that's when they understand the concept of medium of exchange. A 3-year-old will say to you, could I have money so I can go into that store and buy something? Then you know they're ready for the lessons. If they think you go into a store and you just take stuff, go back and do a little more on the lesson side. That's when they start connecting their environment. And by the way, Jeff, we teach kids a ton of stuff that they do not understand. We teach them how to brush their teeth. Do you think they understand oral hygiene at age 3 or 2? They don't know. In fact, they get an extra set of teeth. I don't know who thought of that. I need an extra set of teeth. I'm just That's the point. We teach them to stop at a red light. Do you think they get that? But we will teach that. The big one is don't talk to strangers.
Mm.
What does that even mean? And psychologists think you have to say something 50,000 times before they understand. In my case, with my kids, it was about 100,000 times. Then they started to realize, and that's the point. But if you don't start connecting real life and their environment, the way you get stuff is you earn the money for it.
Mm.
And I don't care what you call that money, that's how you get it.
Wow, 3 years old. I mean, you'd think, oh yeah, it's early, but no, in thinking about my current 3-year-old, yeah, I mean, she just turned 3, but she understands the medium of exchange. I mean, she negotiates with me. I mean, maybe it's non monetary necessarily, but she negotiates with me because if she does this good behavior, she knows she gets a treaty, right? That's medium of exchange in a certain sense, right? And I think so there's the idea that they need to be ready, right? But then there's also no magic bullet. It's not like you tell them one and done. This is something that you continue to iterate and reinforce. I mean, I think we are trying to iterate and reinforce through our strategies with engaging in our platform, and we've built those entirely around what you've defined as the pillars of financial literacy. And I know there's so much more to it, but I'm wondering if you could kind of summarize those for our listeners.
Well, again, I believe in earning, saving, spending, and sharing. So the deal is the way you get money is you earn it. There's no magic, anything. And what I do is the earning part within the family is an allowance system. And one of the things that as a parent we want is we want our kids to learn the life skills they are going to learn to run a household. Because you can't imagine how many kids don't understand how the groceries get there, don't understand how magically the house gets cleaned or clothes get washed, etc. So what I'm doing is dividing up chores and teaching them the way a real household works. So 3-year-olds do 3-year-old chores. And what you're doing is modeling the behavior with them. So you do it with them. So they're learning. This is how you take the little garbage cans. This is how we recycle. This is how we do 3-year-old chores. And as they get older, they have more chores that they have to do. Do not ever let a teenager do your own laundry because everything will come out this big and pink. So just don't. That's a parenting tip. But beyond that, teach them how a household works. That's it. And then what you do is you are now going to teach them the budget. And a budget is a habit. Adults think it's an object of torture. It's not. You get to choose what you want, and you've earned your money and you deserve to do that. However, there are rules. I get in the digital world, you're going to do it digitally, but I want you to do it in the very beginning to have them understand that this bill represents something that's digital. So they start to connect how that works. So you're going to pay them in cash.
Okay, so follow-up question with regard to the allowance. It sounds like it should always be conditional. You earn the allowance for providing some sort of a value or doing a task. So that probably tells the parent that just doles out the free allowance. That's not a good way to do it. It should be conditional. Then it begs the question, is there a cap? Or if the child decides to be like super productive and like knock them all out, do you pay more?
Great, great, great question. First of all, there are 2 types of chores within any household. Citizen of the household chores where they don't get paid. As a good citizen of the household, you do certain things. You go to bed on time, you wake up on time, you brush your teeth, you are polite to people, you clean your toys up because I don't want to keep, falling over them. And by the way, if you don't, they get put into the Saturday box, which means that you don't get your toys back until Saturday. And Rhett on Oprah decided to explain to Oprah that, however, if you mess up on Friday, you get them back on Saturday, so it doesn't matter anyway.
Smart
Thank you,
kid.
Rhett. No, I wanted our
Wow.
audience of 30,000 people to actually understand that. And I'll tell you what else he did. It was very interesting. Now, you have to do all your chores to get your money, and I'll tell you what he did on Oprah. And the deal is that the reward for citizen of the household is, yay, stickers, we're wonderful. We celebrate good behavior. We do not pay for good behavior. Now, the allowance is done. You take in the beginning 4 clear plastic jars and you divide the money. That's what a budget is. It's a division of money. First jar is the charity jar. 10% comes off the top to go to people who are less fortunate. Could be animals, it could be whatever. Get the kid engaged in what they want. 10% off that. Then you take the remaining 90%, divide it into thirds. Next third is quick cash. instant gratification. They worked hard. They get to select something. You set the overall parameters. If it's no chocolate or candy or whatever, they can't. But beyond that, let them make their decision. Next jar, you're pushing off instant gratification and they're saving for something larger. So the little guys can only save for a week or two. The older ones can save for the iPad or the games or whatever they want. Last jar, long-term savings, their future. Does a 3-year-old understand long-term savings? Absolutely not. Does a 10-year-old understand the concept of long-term savings? Absolutely not. Do the adults in America understand the concept of long-term saving? Absolutely not. So why wouldn't we just instill it? And that's it. That's the way it works. So, as I said, they have to do all their work to get their pay. Rhett was 7 years old, on with Oprah. He's going down. He's got his allowance chart and he's telling Oprah all the jobs that he has to do for the week. And he went down them and he started out by saying, Oprah, we have 5 cats and I have to feed the cats every day, which, by the way, is enough explanation for Oprah Winfrey. I'm just saying. And he
How many
goes,
cats do you have now, Neale?
3. I'm not the crazy cat lady. I mean, they do die off. But anyway, he says to Oprah, if I don't feed the cats every day, Oprah, they starve to death. And then they die. And Mom hates dead cats around the house. Thank you, Rhett. Thank you. So I received 2,300 letters from PETA members around the country about the dead cats in my house. There are no dead cats. Okay. So then he goes through all of his jobs that he has to do every single week. And he says, I'm 7 years old and I get paid $7 a week, but I have to do all my jobs or I don't get paid. And Oprah interrupts this little 7-year-old screaming at him going, that's ridiculous. If you do some of your jobs, you should get some of your pay. That's crazy. That's absolutely wrong, says Oprah Winfrey to this little kid screaming at him. And I'm thinking, oh man, he's going to be writing Mommy Dearest. There's a lot of psychiatry that's going to have to happen after this show. And Rhett stands there, the hand goes back on his hip, and he goes, wait a minute, Oprah, that doesn't make sense, does it? You can't do part of your show and just leave after the first commercial and expect to be paid part of the money that you thought you earned. Don't you have to do your whole show, Oprah, to get all your money? You know how it works in real life. No work, no pay.
Wow.
So that's when I let him move back into the house after the cat. So I never taught him that. I didn't discuss that. That wasn't part of the deal. And by the way, do the little ones start to understand this? Yes. Do you want another Rhett story about charity?
Hit us.
By the way, a fabulous upstanding citizen now, Rhett Godfrey.
Yes, Rhett Godfrey's an upstanding citizen, except for the mustache. So the deal was with Quick Cash, the kids, my 2 were allowed to do whatever they wanted to do with it within parameters. I was a little liberal on the sugar routine. Okay. So we're living in New York. I was president of a bank in New York, and I would let the kids go in with their Quick Cash. So Rhett went in, and he wanted to buy Tootsie Roll Pops for the week. So the deal is to let them figure out and let them count the change and let them, count the money and learn that part of it. So I'm sitting in the back of the little tiny bodega and watching him do this. And he's got his Tootsie Roll Pops and he's counting out his money. We're cool. He stands online and in front of him is a homeless woman. She had a little jar or a cup of money and 1 orange. And the 1 orange cost 33 cents. She dumped her coins on the counter and the store owner counted them. She didn't have enough coins. So he said to her, put your coins back and put the orange back. Now, Rhett, little guy, is watching this whole thing. And he says, Mr. 5-year-old, excuse me, to the woman, I would like to buy that orange for you, but I have to start all over again because I have to start counting. And so the woman got embarrassed and said, no, 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 no. You can't, you can't. And now everyone in the market is kind of stopped looking at him. And he goes, no, 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 no. I want to buy this for you. This is my quick cash. And she was still, no, 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 no. I work for a living. I'm 5 years old and I earn $5 a week. And I have this money for Tootsie Roll Pops, but I have to start over. I get to choose how I spend my quick cash. And so she said, no, no, no. And he goes, didn't you read my mother's book? Now, she had not, evidently, or not read all of it. Anyway, so he said, I'm doing this. I get to choose because I want to buy that orange for you because someday if I don't have food, there will be somebody there to buy it for me. Those are the rules. So I burst out in tears. All the women in the store burst out in tears. He went back, he started over and counted it out. Bought the orange, came back to me, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. That was like amazing. That was it. And he goes, didn't you read your book? It's the works in life. He goes, you're supposed to be proud of me when I do something to surprise you, not when I follow the rules.
Wow. Wow.
So that was it. So now he's 36. He does have a mustache. It's a problem. But anyway, and a social entrepreneur and helping, whatever. And my daughter, equally cool, a wellness entrepreneur and changing the world of wellness and making it accessible to everyone. So, yeah, you can pay it forward and you can teach these kids to do it. And they do get it. It just takes a while. And they get it. And they're going to get NFTs. And they're going to know this is going to be part of their world. And Iris is going to be setting up a situation where they can give to charity. And they will learn to earn, save, spend, share, have a ton of fun, but be responsible. And they love to feel grown up.
Mm-hmm.
Let them be grown ups.
Really great story. And so it just seems it's just all that much more important to not only establish those habits, but just encourage them time over time. And then they yield just beautiful instances like that where he just so beautifully applied so many principles and learnings in a way that really affected not only that one person's life, but in the store, like just it's really lovely. And then there's also a part of me that says, oh, it's that this is the exception to the rule, that this doesn't have to be the exception to the rule, right? This knowledge and information can be available and we can reinforce it, holistically, but it's not we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we can do it and think of the impact that you can have.
For sure, a huge ripple effect. And I think it's important for all parents to, claim accountability for that education. It is our job as parents, first and foremost, to raise upstanding citizens, right? Productive members of society, of whom we can all be proud one day, God willing. But that work starts early and it has to be consistent, just like brushing your teeth, so your kids don't have to file Chapter 11 on their first set of teeth.
Right. No, of course. And I totally agree with you, Jeff. But then there's also like the mom and me that like rises up in defense of parents or in defense of moms specifically, where it's like, wait, why is it on us? Like, aren't we already dealing as parents with managing our lives and our professional careers and our household and our kids' lives? And, it seems like just an awful lot to put on parents. I mean, of course, we want to support parents. We're trying to do that with Toekenz, but it doesn't seem a little unfair that so much is on the parents themselves.
No, because you know what? We signed up for that, number one. And we all you have to do is incorporate it into your daily life. Rather than don't worry about that. I'm putting it on my credit card. But by the way, it's a convenience. The bill comes in at the end of the month. Let me show it to you. Let me show you where the pizza went. Let me show you where this went. That's all. You're allowing them to understand how the world works. That's all. And by the way, I pay for it. That house, there's a mortgage. Let's talk about that. Every time you leave the refrigerator door open, which by the way takes 30% of the electricity in the house, you're costing money. 30%. By the way, you use that water, you turn it on, 70% of the people in the world do not have clean water to drink. So you're not guilting them, you're just showing them the way the world works. And you're also teaching them gratitude, and you're connecting them with real life. Why wouldn't you? Have you ever seen teenagers try to figure out a tip in a restaurant? I mean, it's great. It could be a reality show all by itself. Show them. Here's the bill. Here it is. We have made money the biggest secret in any household. Who invented that? Stop it. Stop it. Show them. Get them involved. This is how it works. That I pay for. This is what I pay the gardener. If you do it, you're not going to do as good a job. And I will pay you, but trust me, he or she comes with tools and all this other stuff, and I'm supplying that to you, and that's why I'm paying you less. And by the way, after they finish their allowance, Jeff, they can do odd jobs and earn as much as they want, but you do the allowance first. By the way, when they're doing an odd job, pay by the job and not by the hour, because sweeping the walk otherwise will take 7 years. So don't do that.
Pay by the job, not by the hour. There is no cap. Odd jobs earn you extra. Parents, go get it. Work that allowance system and start your financial literacy as early as you can.
I'd also sum it up by saying money is a big, big deal, but we don't have to make it a big deal. Like, we just have to incorporate it in our everyday lives and our everyday education. And that makes a ton of sense to me, because I know that's the same approach that we take to, like you were talking about, physical hygiene, and also the things that we're cautioning them about, like in terms of talking to strangers, or, what people aren't allowed to do with their body. Like, those aren't one and done conversations where you terrify a kid with this huge subject. These are subjects that you have discussions about time over time in a non-big deal way, even though they're big deals.
Absolutely. And the more they know about money, the more they're going to understand what money does and what money doesn't do. It doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't. It just means you have more money. Certain jobs pay certain things. Certain jobs pay something else. It's not the amount of money that makes you anything other than having more money. And it's a tool, and it's not what you earn. It's how you save it and spend it and have it reflect your values. And the more conversation you have, they will not confuse net worth with self-worth, which is what you want them to have. And that's it.
Boom, drop the mic, Neale.
Wow. Thank you so much. I've learned so much in this last hour. I just want to say I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us and for sharing all of this with us.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you to what you guys are doing.
We're so excited to bring you this podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed it. We hope that you subscribe to our podcast wherever you get podcasts, that you follow us on social distribution platforms, as Jeffrey likes to call them. Where can they find us, Jeff?
To correct you, content distribution platforms. Most people call them social media, but YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all those that apply in your little world, whichever ones you like. Find us, we'll be there.
Find us, we'll be there. We're going to continue to bring you this podcast. We're so excited to do it. Thank you again, Neale, and thank you to our listeners, and we'll see you next time.